Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat, and it is that time again. It is Friday, 11 o'clock. It is September 20th of 2024. And thank you, Jesus. Boy, I tell you what, all the amazing things that are happening in this world, we always are reminded that He is sovereign over all these things, right? In control, completely strategic, out in front. We recognize His voice. Thankful for that. Folks, I'm just glad you're here. Great people. Sam Kemp is here. Mike Ostel, praying for you and Peggy. Carter Hill, what's going on? And Ego Foundation. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know what you're here for because I'm here for it too. And that is, this is all about a reminder. It's a reminder to all of us to encourage us that Jesus is alive and He speaks. And that could not be more important. It is it's the whole shooting match, as I often say. Jesus is alive and He speaks. The question is, are you interested and are you listening? And last week was an amazing time listening to a clip from episode 3 related to this idea of hearing from God. And today we're talking about the transfer. And, this is kind of a 400 level class within the Steve Staggs education. And really about this idea of that in this world, Satan's kingdom, the liar, is lying to us, that there is this illusion of scarcity, but creation is abundant. And what does it take? What is the transfer? What does it take? How is the man transferred? All of those things. And so we're going to hear a little bit about that. We're going to hear about the classes of beings. But let's jump right into it because I'm just excited to hear it again. I'll be back. We'll kind of talk through some things, but it's a great reminder. It's episode 70, folks. 70. There's 37 episodes with Steve Staggs before he passed. And so this is a big marker, if you will. And I'm seeing so many things that Steve talked to me about. I'm just amazed. I met Steve at a Texan meetup. I shook his hand and the Lord said, listen to this guy. And I listened to him for 2 years. And it's been the most impactful, 2 years of my life. And the implications of all of this and what was shared with me and what I share with you and what Steve shares is really a journey of a lifetime because it's how it's built. It's how it works. We're coming in alignment with the creator of all things. And so it's encouraging because He gives a certain peace that the world doesn't give. And so hopefully this will be a blessing to you. Let's jump right into it. Our buddy Steve. This is from episode 11. The link's in. Is this what you mean by the transfer?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
This is where it begins. See,
It's a transfer of authority.
Transfer the man, and you transfer all the man is and has. So what comes with the man? And I'm speaking of that in the Adam instance of male and female, not just not men.
Right.
Not male. It's the Adam. The man is an order within the class of Elohim, and that's comprised of male and female. And so when the man is transferred to the kingdom, all the man is and all the man has comes with the man, both male and female. And so what is the man given? Authority. So that authority comes. What does the man possess? A family. What comes with him? The family. What does the man possess? Money, resources, skill, intelligence, wisdom. All that the man is and has is transferred with him. And when that happens, guess what? It becomes like the leaven in the 3 lumps that Jesus was talking about. Eventually, it overtakes the entirety of its host. And in this instance, it's the earth. Wow. One person at a time. Okay? And are you interested? Is that a choice you're interested in making or even learning about? If you are, ask. Call upon me. And I will answer you, for I am attentive to your very inquiry. And I will show you and set right before you things that will blow your ever-loving mind, that have been hidden from you and that you did not know. Well, we're talking about a few of them.
Steve, I just when I thought it couldn't get any better, it gets better. Well, what you've done is like we kind of landed this plane in such a wonderful, amazing way, is that this has all come full circle. It's only taken 22 hours to do it, but what an amazing thing. And I hope people are seeing this, because it's just, it's deeper and deeper and deeper, right? Like your appreciation and, but what's, I just want your comment on this. It feels like this is what true worship is. And what I mean by that is the reaction that I have to this is this overwhelming sense of lack of ability to communicate its grandness. And it's almost this like reverence
Yes.
that is genuine. It's not a posture. It's not a song. It's not, yeah, it's not a posture. It's like rendering your heart in a way that is somewhat undone, but protected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're undone, but it's in like the hands of the Father, in
Yeah.
the sense that you're like, hold on, I can let go. I can let go of this. Hold on. So the strength is actually in and through and by and for you. So hold on a second. All the things you've created me to be and all the things that you prepared in advance to me might actually come in accordance with your will and your purpose that you created me to be, rather than when Lambo. I have this idea of what my life should be like and what I should have and all of these things. And you're saying, no, there is such a future prepared for you in alignment with me that you will absolutely blow your mind, not only of revelation and understanding and of peace and of security and blessing and order, but also, hey, he may just have a purpose for you that he's been essentially waiting for you to come back from the pigs to assume. And that's how I feel. I feel like, hold on a second, I'm going to make you like my signet ring. I'm going to give you the authority to walk in me, and you are an agent of all the purposes I have for you, designed and crafted and redeemed on everything you've ever done. And now I think about storing up your treasures in heaven, and I go, oh, so that's what you meant.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is everything that moth and rust tears apart here is that in this authority through me is actually the storehouse of these things is in it's actually in conduit through, because the only things that last of those things are the work that he's already accomplished and continues to accomplish in our timeline. And it's pretty overwhelming. So it just feels like this is the essence of worship, is not a posture, but of a reverence.
Yeah, it's it's quite fascinating when you discover that God never requires worship. He never asks you to worship him. He never mandates that you worship him. Now, there is one who is posturing as God who demands that you worship him.
Right.
See, he craves it with every fiber of his being, and he will, you will worship him one way or another, either because you want to, or because you don't know you're doing it, or because you have to in order to escape the cruelty that you're under. But you will worship him. That isn't how the Father works. That isn't how God works. What happens is you just come into a state with him that you would describe as worship, but it bears no resemblance to what you previously thought worship was.
Correct.
It is this almost overwhelming explosion, if you will, or overflowing within you. Jesus called it this, life that comes out of your belly, is the way that he described. It just wells up on the inside of you that is so pure with adoration that, wow. And I didn't have to muster it up, and he didn't require me to give it to him. It just happened. Okay? And that's part of the marvel of beginning to learn and discover who the Father actually is. Let me tell you what, he's not an egomaniac. He's not insecure. He's not worried about the stuff that we're told he's worried about and concerned about. And he's not about retribution at all. He's about offering you choice, you exercising your choice, and then him allowing you to have the fullness of your choice. In the religious world, we're told that he's a God of retribution, that he's a God of vengeance. He's so pissed off at man that he wants to wipe him off the face of the earth through the flood because he's sorry he made man. Well, dude, you're the one who set the whole thing up. What do you mean? There's a very simple solution to this. If you could keep me out of the garden, why couldn't you keep the serpent out of the garden? Why couldn't you do that? You're the guy who had all the power, going to power, with the angels, with the swirling swords of fire. If you keep me out of that, why couldn't you keep the angel whose name is Satan, who partnered with the serpent? Why couldn't you keep him out of the garden? Now, Steve, you're starting to ask the right questions. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. I'm about to show you things that have been hidden from you, that I'll stand them right before you because I'm attentive to your questions. Keep asking. Keep asking. See? Come on. You'll get there. Come on. We can get there. Let's do this. Man, I'm in, Lord. Let's do it. So that's the Elohim. That's who we are. Okay? And we are charged with the responsibility of ruling the earth with Jehovah, with Jesus, with the Father. They all operate as one, inseparably one. That's how heaven rules. Okay? That's the Elohim. So in the three classes of beings, by the way, are we okay to go to the angels now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
We're only an hour 20 in.
Well, it's important that we really, the
No,
two
it's
previous episodes, as you're exactly right, have built up to this is who we are, folks.
Yeah.
See? Now, that's
Go.
where it begins.
Let's do it.
If you don't, until that happens, there's really not an ability. I'm speaking from my own experience. Once that realization came, all of a sudden, all the pieces began to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we have the second class of beings, are the angelic class. The angelic class are the ministering class. Their responsibility is to support the will and intentions of the Elohim in the spiritual domain. So they are the ministering class. They have no authority to rule. They do not possess the authority to rule. They possess the authority to minister. Okay. The third class that's revealed and described in the scriptures is the animal class. The animal class is the serving class. And so when Adam and Eve were naked, what did Jehovah call upon? He called upon the animal class to give up their life in exchange and provide for them the covering of his man, because the animal class is there to serve. Okay. When there is a need to demonstrate how this dimension of what we call sin and its consequences occurs, then I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a picture of how this works. And I'm going to call a perfect lamb. We're going to put, the priest is going to lay his hand on the lamb and transfer, there's that transfer concept. Transfer the sin of the nation to the lamb, and then the lamb is going to be released into the wilderness to face whatever outcome awaits him, but he's going to carry away the consequence of this sin. Why? Because it's a serving class. By the way, you see the gods of the nations doing the same thing. Baal takes on the bull. The bull becomes the animal that represents him because it serves his interest in projecting power, authority, and might. Okay? And so there's all of these things that happen. So there's the Elohim class, which is the ruling class. There's the angelic class, which is the ministering class. There's the animal class, which is the serving class. And these classes are designed to operate together to achieve the interests of the Father, which in its singular form is to equip his man to rule with him in the fullness of his nature and character. Okay? By the way, isn't that what you saw in the burning bush that you were talking about before? And the angel of the Lord appeared to the burning bush. The angel of Jehovah, the messenger of Jehovah came. Okay? And what did he do? He ministered to Moses. Yeah. Hey, Mo, dude, I got a job for you to do. You interested? You think I had you in the courts of Egypt all those many years just because I had nothing else to do with you? Do you think I've had you out here in the wilderness all these other 40 years just because I was tired of you? No, man, I have equipped you to do the big job for me here. All of that went in to equipping you to do the job for me. Are you interested? Now,
but I don't speak so good.
Yeah, I got a stutter. I got a big tongue. I don't do what I don't do. Now, isn't it fascinating that he's presenting his argument to God about how inadequate he is to go to Pharaoh, while he's perfectly articulate and eloquent in his argument to God?
Yeah. Can I bring my brother?
Yeah. How about him? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. See?
But
You
isn't
will-
that fascinating though? In that moment, you think about who did Aaron become, and to think that negotiation and discussion of ruling, right? Because if you look now, what came out of that Moses and Aaron thing
yes.
for a long period of time, and I think about the importance of Aaron, like how interesting that the rulership in with him, like he had this discussion and negotiation, and basically said, "Hey, what about him?" Well, yeah, we can use him.
Yep.
And in a way, the exercising of authority in this to say, "Hey, can I have some help? Can we do this? Can we negotiate together to accomplish this work?"
Well, yes, and what Jehovah said to him is, "You will be to him as I am to you. You will be God to him as I am God to you." Well, guess what that is? As Moses says, "You are the extension of my throne," so Aaron will enter into that, and he will likewise be the extension of my throne with and through you.
Yeah.
There's the partnership.
Yeah.
Jehovah didn't say, "Nah, screw you, I'm not doing that. I told you what to do, just do that." No, we could do that. This whole thing is designed to be a partnership. Let's do it. Let's demonstrate to Pharaoh why we're going to kick his butt. And so the angelic class is there to minister. It has no authority to rule. And so you see it over and over and over, the ministering nature of the angelic class in things called, like the angel in the scriptures, it's called, or the Bible, it's called angel of the Lord, which is actually angel of Jehovah or messenger of Jehovah. By the way, there are both human messengers and there are angelic messengers, spiritual messengers. And so they both carry the same responsibility. They carry the message of Jehovah, of the Father, to whomever it is that he wants to speak. See? So, and you see it all through this. So now we have the ministering class who has no authority to rule. So now we have this, and within the angelic class, there are orders within the angelic class, just like there are within the Elohim class. Okay, so you have, seraphim, you have the cherubs, you have seraphim, you have arcs, you have exousia, you have cosmocrator, you have these various classes. And at the lower class, the two lower orders within the class of angelic, in the domain of darkness, they are referred to as the Poneria Pneumaticus, which is, those are the evil spirits, and what they do. The last two orders, Poneria Pneumaticus, and the lowest order is the unclean spirits. Those are what we commonly refer to as demons, but they're all fallen angels. It's just that within their hierarchy, those are the two lowest in that order. And within the class of angelic beings, there are those that operate purely, in the spiritual realm. So some operate purely in the heavens. So you have the seraphim and things of that nature that operate purely in the heavens. You have those who then operate in the spiritual domain, like the cherubs, which is Satan is in the cherub order. Then you have arcs. We call them archangels. Otherwise,
Michael, Gabriel.
Yep, those are all arcs. They're more of the warring class, but they still operate primarily in the spiritual realm. Then you have the exousia. They are the class that receives authority and then distributes authority and resources, and they function likewise in the spiritual realm only. And then you have the cosmocrator, which operates is the highest order of angelic beings that functions in the natural, in the earth. And that group is designed to affect and influence all forms of government, because that's what affects rule. So wherever there are groups and there's a governing authority, then the cosmocrator is there to help guide that to achieve the wishes. So on the when you say when Jesus was answering the disciples' question about how do we pray, he said, first recognize who you're who you're talking to and who you're requesting, exchanging wishes with. The Father, who is the most hallowed of all beings, recognize who he is, and that he has one interest, that his kingdom would come and that his will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. So when you pray, please understand that's his point of view, that's his interest. So come in alignment with him, as you pray, recognize that's what he's about. Oh, by the way, that's what I'm about, bringing about his vision. You want to know what I'm doing? I'm doing what my Father's doing, and we're bringing about and accomplishing his vision. So there are cosmocrator. So now let's get into, areas of government. All right. So we just talked about, the husband, the man of the head of the family, right? The Adam male, who's given charge over utilizing the authority of God to bless and protect his family. Guess what? There's a governmental function there. So we want to govern our family with Jesus in order to accomplish, so that the kingdom may come to us and our family, so that his will would be done within our family, so that heaven would actually reside and operate in our area of influence on the earth. The cosmocrator from heaven helps us do that, helps us understand how government functions and how our family is to be administered and managed. So you get the idea that this is all the form of ministry, where the angelic class helps us minister. Now, in the angelic class that remains in alignment with God in heaven, their interest is in helping us fulfill our reason for being created, so that we can come into the fullness of our purpose for ruling with him, so that the use and administration of the authority can be used to bless and protect, so that the power that he makes available to us accomplishes that blessing and protecting. That's how it operates on the kingdom side of the ledger, the right side upside.
Yeah.
On the upside down side of darkness, those same angelic orders are used to rule over us and to convert us into slaves, so that we end up doing their bidding. So the authority that is given to us to bless and protect, they use it to actually rule, because they have no authority to rule apart from us. Now, for that to happen, we have to give them permission to use our authority. And there's we could spend a couple of other sessions on how that all occurs. But none of this means anything. It meant nothing to me until Jesus let me see who I was and am and continue to be as an Elohim man. It didn't make any sense. I thought all I had to do was rebuke the devil. No. Tell me how far your rebuke will go when you're already living as a slave to him. How far does a slave's rebuke go to his master?
Yeah.
Does his master pay 1 ounce of attention to the slave rebuking him? Not a bit. So until I start to learn, how is this dude snookering me to become his slave? So that I actually end up doing everything he wants me to do while thinking I'm doing all the good stuff. Well, Jesus, looks like I better become a student again. See? How does that happen?
Well, now when you say the wages of sin is death, it so makes sense, right? This idea that who is paying the wage, right?
You want to talk about that conversation?
Who are we? Well, we've done it before too. It's like, who are you working for? And I think what's so amazing is, you're right. When you understand who you are in the context of him, all of these things become clear. And now, then you start reading the scriptures and you're like, that it becomes technicolor, right? Well, the wages of sin, well, who are you working for? Yeah, this is what he gives you, death. The wages of sin is death. Yeah. When you work for and are slave to the one who is evil, you reap what you sow. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And you think of, the church has reduced this down to salvation.
Yeah.
And in reality, it becomes a very dilute, anemic representation of the truth.
Yeah.
Because once you realize this truth, you go, oh, okay. And it's really interesting that this idea that we're working something out, because a lot of this it's not easy to do, right? The practice of this, you recognize who you are and you go, you said it earlier, he's Like, the thing he doesn't want to tolerate is you listening to Jesus and following what he says and giving him all authority and walking this stuff out with him. Yeah, you can't tolerate it.
He can't tolerate it.
Well, the
Yeah.
upside down world then is us enslaved to and giving our authority to, and now, like, so now think about crypto, just
Yeah.
for, because we happen to be on a crypto channel. Bringing it back to all that. So now, and I'm just going to tell you what I'm sensing, that the application of this for what we're dealing with right now. It makes sense to me that there are so many folks out there who, and we hear this kind of trite reference to selling your soul to the devil, right? Which we could get to at some point. But this idea of aligning ourselves, right, going our own way, but aligning ourselves and giving our authority over to Satan himself. And that there's power there that is given to us in that process, right? Because look at all the guarantees that Satan was given to Jesus. Hey, yeah, I'll give you all this stuff. Look at all the benefits I'll give you. And we often say that this is a battle between good and evil. And we look at the financial system and we look at the upside down world and we say, all right, this stuff is, the authority's been given away. And it is, what does it manifest? Well, lockdowns and authoritarianism and heavy-handedness and centralization and power, and we're subject to it. And of course, now I understand why you corrected my language so many times of saying, no, no one's giving you the opportunity to vote on Texas independence. No. This is not within their authority because we created this. No, we're demanding this. This is what we're exerting our authority over it because it is actually subject to us. And it's such a big idea, and it has so far-reaching implications that I look at crypto and I look at what's been happening, right? I often say, hey, it's so great going to these meetups with these Hexicans and Texicans and high-fiving people and, winning the lottery in slow motion and all this stuff, which is just pales in comparison to what potentially is happening. Is that just as Satan is taking authority and giving you some sort of, benefit from it, right? Some sort of incentive, the actual alignment with creation is abundant. And that what we're seeing potentially palely, in a dim sort of way, is that the tools, when animated with the authority of Elohim man, could ultimately produce the kingdom-like, heaven-like experience here on earth. And that in this community of working together and understanding who we are in him actually could lead to accomplishing the purpose to bless and protect and operate in his nature and character as an extension of him that brings about the beautiful purpose that he designed it all to
Yeah.
be. In that
Yeah.
we actually, in this understanding and of who we are, actually is the implication of the kingdom of God being integrated on earth as it is in heaven. That's a big idea.
Oh, it's transformative. I mean,
Well, it's everything.
well, what it does is it goes, if I'm similar to anybody else, it was, well, of course.
Right.
Of course. Why else would we be doing this? What else is there? What else could the outcome be? Well, of course. Duh. See, why couldn't I figure that out before? Well, Steve, because you can't figure it out. See, I didn't give you this information so you could figure it out. I gave you this information so you could inquire of me what the heck I meant when I said that. And once you ask me, I'm attentively waiting for your question because I want to show you stuff that'll blow your mind that's been hidden from you. But I'm going to stand it right in front of you to see it, your words, in living color.
Yeah.
And when you see it, it's going to all make sense.
I hear people say oftentimes, they say, just tell me the truth. Right? Just tell me the truth. Folks, Steve is telling you the truth. And I've asked Jesus, and what is the truth? What is he telling you? And if I could summarize this stuff, it just absolutely, each time we have this, I just have revelation after revelation. Number one, Jesus is not dead. He's not a historical figure. He's alive and he speaks.
Yeah.
The word of God is actually his spoken word to you.
Yeah.
And people throughout history have documented the things that they've heard because they've been overwhelmed and they've had limited words to even describe the beauty and majesty of who he is.
Yeah.
And so we have accounts of it. I write it down in my journal. You write it down in your journal. And there have been some letters written to some churches that are very similar. And there were these things that we look to and we say, look at what he has done. But it's actually a derivative of the spoken words of Jesus himself, and he is accessible to you. And what is amazing about that is, what I love about this truth that you're suggesting, Steve, is you're not asking anyone to listen to you, but I believe you're telling people the truth.
Yeah.
I'm telling you the truth. Somebody please tell me the truth. Okay, Steve's telling you the truth, folks. Well, what is he saying to you? Don't believe me, ask him yourself. And your intent and your desire to know he who created it all. And who doesn't want to be aligned with the very framework of creation?
Yeah.
If you knew that there was a place that you could go that would have the answer to the all of the questions that have been burdening you, and this chasing, I think of my dad self-medicating, right? I think about the guy who the Lord Jesus appeared to him and told him to stop doing crack, so he did. And I think about all of these things where somebody walks into a market and says, "Have you seen this man?" And they hold up a picture of some guy and they're like, "I saw that man in a dream last night." What is this constant pursuing of this one who says, "No, who you were made in this order is of me." And we, just as Jesus said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." Steve, I went to this meetup, this PulseCon thing in Las Vegas, and there's some weird stuff going on, drugs, bizarre stuff. And this guy, who I swear was like, had a demon in him, he literally came right up into my face, way too close, like where you can smell somebody's breath.
Yeah.
And he just came up to me and almost kind of cocked his head weird. And he goes, "I see Jesus in your eyes." And then he's like, gone. And I'm like, well, thanks for the compliment. Appreciate that. But I'll tell you what, the journey of, the yoke is easy and the burden is light. What's so amazing to me is, it almost feels like, in a way, if I let go of my own desire to go my own way, I receive and see and am welcomed into this amazing journey that is custom tailored for me, that I can ask and have access to. And it's like everyone's all excited about Chat GPT, Steve. I can ask it anything and I can get all the information. He's the original, man.
Yeah.
Ask him. Ask him. He's alive. He's not historic. He's not just alive on Sunday. They roll the stone away. Oh, he's alive. He's risen. But that's the lie. Not the lie, but that's this anemic thing that's been shared. And what you're saying is, no, try him on for size.
Yeah.
This isn't like joining some cult. This is aligning yourself with the very nature and in structure and framework of creation. And you know what it is? It'll be confirmed for you. You don't have to listen to anyone. He'll
Yeah.
confirm it for you. He will galvanize it in you, as he's done for me. Because here's the thing: I don't follow any men, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that you are a man.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that you're sharing a message, and I'm thankful that you would take the time to do this. But the fruit of it is so invigorating. It's awesome. But then I think, Steve, so answer me this question. If this is just a taste of it, right? The brisket, I smell it. It smells good. Now I'm tasting of it. What are the implications of walking this out over time?
The transfer.
Right? And what does that mean for people? Like, help people understand what that means.
Okay. Let's go back to the garden. What happened in the garden? Who possessed the authority over the entirety of the earth in the garden before the serpent started yakking with Eve?
Man.
Okay. And who was man aligned with at that time?
Partnered with the Father himself.
Yep. Partner with Jehovah, partner with the Father. What do we call it? We call it Garden of Eden is like a paradise.
Yeah.
Perfect. What was man's responsibility? He tilled the garden. He named all of the animals, exercising authority over every single animal he made, back to the naming rights.
Naming rights.
Okay, which we can get into more in a deeper conversation if you're interested. Jehovah was with him in every part of his life, in his breath, in the wind of the garden, okay, and in the very spirit of his being. There was no separation. He experienced the totality of perfection. There was no death in him. Okay? Now, when the serpent cut his deal with Satan and then became agent to approach Eve, and what was the promise that he made?
You'll be like God.
You'll be like God, like the Elohim. God is the English translation. What he actually said, you'll be like the Elohim, plural.
What a subtle lie.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. What did he add to that? Knowing the difference between good and evil. Okay. She said, wow, I like that. Now, we give Eve a lot of grief about what was going on, but remember, she understood that the animals were there to serve her.
Mm-hmm.
And that the serpent was, you used the word earlier about how crafty this whole thing is, that it was the shrewdest, wisest, and most crafty of all the beings animals created, that Jehovah had created and put on the earth. So when the serpent approached her and said, hey, what's going on? And started having these, he knew what was going on. She was struggling with what the right thing to do was and what the wrong thing to do was. Well, what were the alternatives that Jehovah built and put in the garden? He said, look, guys, here are your choices. When you get in a jam and you want to know what to do and what not to do, you have two choices. You can go to the tree of life, which is me, and through our relationship in learning how to live the life that I have designed, I will teach you and bring you to the point of knowing the answer to the question you're asking, or how to deal with the challenge, so that out of life you will learn, and then in your learning you will produce life in your decision. So life will produce life will produce life. Or you can go to this tree that's going to fill you full of knowledge, and it's going to tell you what the answer is, what to do, what not to do. But if you go to that tree, you'll know what to do quicker, but in exchange, you're going to die. So don't eat off of that tree, because it'll offer you one thing and deliver another. It'll offer you a solution, but deliver to you death. So what was the serpent saying to her? You got a problem. You don't know what to do. Didn't Jehovah tell you that you could eat of all of the trees of the garden freely? It's all there for you. She said, yep, he did, except for one tree. Not supposed to eat from that tree. You're not even supposed to touch it, nor are you to get pissed off and strike it, as if you're going to condemn its very existence. No, it has a purpose. So that's what he said. Nah, that isn't what he meant. That isn't what he meant. For he knows you're not going to die. For he knows that in the day you eat it, you're going to become like him, knowing good and evil. You're going to become like the Elohim. Now, the translations say like him, but it's like the Elohim. Like the God, like God, no, it's like the Elohim. You'll become like the Elohim. Well, the only problem with that was she was already an Elohim. Now, here's the punchline in all of that. There's two of them. What did Jehovah say once they ate? They have become like us, knowing good and evil. Mission accomplished. Let's back up. The angelic class are created to minister to the Elohim class to accomplish their interests and purpose in the spiritual realm. What did the serpent, as the agent of the angelic class, Satan, just accomplish? They just ministered to the plan of God, that his man would know good and evil. Now, here was the exchange. I will make you like the Most High God. Okay, I will make you like the Elohim. Well, what was Satan's idea of being like the Elohim? He relegated them to the animal class.
Yeah.
And so there's these two little verses in the scriptures, one in Hebrews and one in Psalm, that said for a little while what man was made lower than the angels. Well, how did that happen? Eve, then followed by Adam, acted under the authority of what the serpent had said, and by doing so became a slave to what the serpent said. And the serpent, being an angelic class being, then relegated mankind to the lower class, which is the animal class. What are we taught in school that mankind is?
An animal.
An animal. And so as long as we think we're an animal, what are we? We're subordinate to the superior class of the angelic class. Why? Because that's how God created it? No, because that's what we gave up. That's what we transferred. We transferred our authority as an Elohim in the manner and purpose that God had created his Elohim man, in exchange for the serpent's idea of what the Elohim man was, which was to relegate him to the lower class called the animal class, which is subordinate to the angelic class. Now, why is that important? Now we're about to answer your question. Because when we come into an understanding and start walking in the purpose of our Elohim class authority, That then is then reversed. As it was transferred to the serpent, then it is taken from the serpent. And we then come into the purpose for which we originally were created. It's called a transfer. As the first transfer occurred, now the second transfer is occurring and is coming back. As the perverse took the perfect, now the perfect is going to take back the perverse. That's a big idea, using your terms.
It's everything, man. Well, and then I think about, folks, I guess you got to stop somewhere. It just keeps coming. I hope that's been interesting and helpful to you. I always like to I take notes during this, when I'm listening again, and I'd like to share some things. But I had an experience this morning that I think is relevant to all of this. And was this discussion around the transfer, this idea that, what was transferred, our authority that was transferred to, and we came up underneath, Satan himself. And we live in this world, which, the whole point of this podcast is we live in an upside down world. Well, it's literally upside down, right? It'd be God, right? Man is Elohim man, angelic messengers, and then the servant class of animals. And if you think about it, it's completely inverted, right? Over billions and billions of years, you evolved into this. You're just an animal. And what's amazing is when you start diving into not only the scriptures, but asking Jesus about these things. And that's really the whole point of everything here is what we're benefiting from is a lifetime, really 40 years of Steve applying the rigor and discipline that he applied to Major League Baseball, right? His whole baseball career, one of the most disciplined people. And he applied that. He's like, I'm going to take you seriously and I'm going to ask you. And I'm going to expect you're going to tell me. And of course, what did he discover in that period of time? But what's amazing is the deeper you dive into this, you realize how crafty and subtle the lies are. And you realize that, wow, these things can get inverted pretty quickly. And, when you start understanding that, I think the biggest thing for me, if I were to kind of simplify things for, if you're like, these terms are kind of weird. Let me just say it this way. Do you believe that God is sovereign over all things? Meaning he is, all knowing, everywhere, right? Omniscient, omnipresent, all knowing, sovereign over all things, right? So if you take that view and you say, okay, God is a supreme being and there's nothing that is a surprise to him, right? He's aware of all things. Well, there's clearly a framework because there's so much of the scriptures that talk about authority and hierarchy, right? And a lot of family dynamics, right? Fathers and sons and, kingship and, ruling and reigning and all of these things. And then, of course, spoken of different hierarchy within the angelic class. And then, of course, we have the animal kingdom, right? The king of the jungle, right? We know of the, the food chain, if you will, in the animal class. And so when you start thinking about that, I was having a conversation earlier just about the prodigal son. The prodigal son wants his inheritance now, usually after the father dies, right? But he wants it now. And the father says, okay, you can have it now. And what does he go do? He goes, blows it with loose living. You probably know the story. And what's amazing about it is there's a brother that's at home, right? He stays home. And there's the wayward son. And we know about this, the prodigals that leave and, go and waste the family wealth or whatever. But the more you dig into this, you see that as he blows it all and finds himself eating with the pigs, he recognizes and looks, and we see this kind of picture of him thinking about his father's house. And he's like, well, in my father's house, he has servants that eat better than this. And of course, these stories aren't told for no reason, right? There's a practical illustration of what is it like? What's the kingdom of heaven like? Well, there's a father, there's a king, and you are his son or daughter. And what's interesting about it is he's like, well, maybe if I just go back and ask if I can be a slave. He's like, no. And I'm reminded of, this lie that was told to Eve. She was already this class of being. She already had this ability to rule. She was already Elohim. But basically convincing her, lying to you. But that was the plan all along, is that you would have this discernment between good and evil. Because if God is completely sovereign over all things and knows all things, then he can't be tricked. He can't be surprised. So you have to assume that this was all a part of the plan. And you think about it, you're like, so how is it this plan of us knowing good and evil and being like him, why is that irrelevant? Well, if you're going to be any help to me at all, you've got to be able to discern between lookalikes, right? And what this is a perfect example of lookalikes. Two trees, they look very similar. They have fruit. We tell you, hey, one is life and one is knowledge and death. You got to discern between the two. And it's this duality picture of, a binary decision. And it's really the first one of the countless decisions that we end up making. And we have this understanding and this knowledge. And so when you look at this, they ask Jesus how to pray. And he's like, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So there's one supreme God. Jesus called him Father. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. So not mine, your will. Your kingdom come. Your will be done. Where? On earth. Oh, like it is over there in heaven. Okay, well, how does it come? Right? What's amazing about it is this is our role. And so he talked about the transfer, and it was a wonderful bookend, right? We had all of the class stuff in the middle, but a start with this transfer idea and then the end with this transfer idea is that, do you see your role, that you have a role in this whole creation with maybe, if you're lucky, 120 years? And that's really pretty liberal of me to say that you could have 120. Are you fulfilling that purpose? Well, how do I fulfill that purpose that I was created for, that's in alignment with the overarching strategic vision of the Father? Well, you can't come up with it on your own. You get some hints about it, right? But what's amazing to me is what Steve invited me into was going direct. And it's funny, throughout history, how many people said, hey, why don't you go ask him yourself? But there's so many lies that are layered up, like, oh yeah, Jesus, he's gone, he's dead. And of course, I think, with Christians, if you ask them, they would say, well, yeah, of course, Jesus is alive. Now, do you really believe he's alive? Or is he alive, historically alive? He, during that kind of first century, he died, and yeah, he rose from the grave, but now he's gone and he's no more and he's not speaking anymore. And here's a guy like Steve who comes and says, hang on a second, let's look at what this actually means, and let's ask him ourselves. Because there's so much evidence within the scriptures that basically says, literally God from the sky saying, this is my son, listen to him. Jesus himself, when he's tempted in the wilderness, right? Satan is tempting him, offering him all kinds of things, which Satan tends to offer you a lot of things. And you have a choice to make. And what does he say? Man does not live on bread alone, but out of every word that comes out of the mouth of God. So many times he only does what he sees the Father saying or doing. He's literally about to go to the cross. He's literally in the Garden of Gethsemane. He is sweating blood. And I think that represents like pretty tough stuff. And he literally prays to the Father. He's like, hey, if there's any other way we can do this, remove this cup from me. And what does it say? It says that he literally, not my will, but your will be done, to accomplish the strategic plan. And he goes to the cross. And it's a model for us. And he literally came here to model this for us. And I think what's so incredible about it is, I think most people, even the people that claim to be Christians, haven't actually genuinely inquired. Because a lot of what we're taught about prayer is kind of talking at God. But if it's like, delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart, well, he's giving you his desires, right? His will be done. And I remember going through this process with Steve where I was talking about faith, and he says, hang on a second, let's talk about what faith really is. And if you dig into the word, right, and you understand what prayer is and faith is, faith actually comes with hearing the spoken words of God. You've heard that before, right? Oh, prayer comes through, or faith comes through here. Well, hang on, let's understand this. So faith isn't something that I have. It's not something that I gather up or muster. It's something that's given to me by a speaking Jesus. The question is, are you listening? Are you interested in asking? Are you inquiring? And that's where it all happens. That's where all the active ingredient is in this interaction directly with you. And there's so much evidence of this. But the modern day church really is, I think, threatened by you listening to Jesus and doing what he says. As long as it goes along with our program, I'm okay with it. But if it's like, really big stuff, hang on a second, put your seatbelt on. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. And this is such a profound idea because you try it on for size and you'll see what happens. And I'm experiencing that right now. I'm experiencing that. I've experienced it, ever since I basically said, all right, who has authority to speak to you? So last week, Steve was recounting that time. He asked me that question. Who has authority to speak to you? Does Satan have the authority to speak to you? Do the demons have authority to speak to you? No. Then who has authority to speak to you, Matt? And I said, well, Jesus, only you have authority to speak to me. And you think about this, even when people talk about the Holy Spirit, it's like, yeah, I'm sending one who will remind you of everything I said. That's the role of the Spirit. And you're like, whoa. So I can inquire of you at any time. And so, well, go back to the garden. That's this paradise thing where we're in perfect union. We do this together. It's a partnership. And what is amazing is God made us in his image. And I think a lot of people are like, whoa, you're not God. I'm not saying God. I'm saying we're made in his image and is being conformed to his likeness. Well, what does that look like? Well, instead of it just being a father-son thing, now I want you to see what my friend said this morning. This is a king and you are a prince. What happens when the king is deposed, right? In a normal human situation, what happens when the king dies or the king is deposed? When somebody comes in and takes over the kingdom, what happens? They kill the sons of the king. Why? Because the authority is inherently on them. The same thing is true here. Authority is what this thing is all about. You have this because you are sons of God. You are created in his image. And so what is Satan's, why would we break down these classes and why would you see it this way? Because the angelic class duped Eve and basically said, give me your authority and you will come underneath me. And of course, that's the upside down world that we live in. And so what's the hope of the future? What's the hope of all this stuff? And I think that we play a significant role. I think crypto plays a role in that. But the mechanisms, all of the tools that we have are neutral. And it explains a whole lot, right? One of the biggest questions that non-believing people ask is they're like, well, how can bad things happen to good people? How can, there be people that shoot up schools? How can there be all these things that we're seeing in this world that are just so wrong? And you look at it and you go, everything is a result of a nature and a character. And so what's really interesting about this is, Steve mentioned many times, a gun could be sitting on a table and it just sits there and ultimately would, dissolve unless it is picked up and animated by a certain nature and character, right? Tools are inherently neutral. People are like, oh, the internet's evil or AI is evil. No, it's not inherently, it's a tool, but it gets animated by a certain nature and character. So somebody that goes and shoots up a school or a bowling alley, how are they animating that tool? And we're like, well, they're mentally ill and all this. Well, guns don't shoot themselves. People with certain nature and character use those. So some people actually hunt for food for their family. That's a use of a gun. There's a lot of different uses. But as you start to think about what is your role, and as you start to ask and listen and say, hey, show me how to hear from you, it's an adventure like no other, because what you find, and this is what I have found and what has been really, really significant for me recently, is everything in my whole life that I've ever done that I thought was kind of, that's kind of throwaway, becomes relevant. And I'm reminded of David. David, they see Goliath and they're scared. And is David scared? No. Why? And he said, because I fought the lion and the bear. Folks, you've done the same thing. That's why it says, consider it pure joy when facing troubles of many kinds. Well, why would I consider it pure joy when I'm fighting a bear? I may die, right? This is scary. And then you look in retrospect and you're like, oh, you prepared me for this giant. So I want you to see your whole life as you follow Jesus, as you literally look into his face, as you ask him, as you inquire. He's interested in your every inquiry. He will teach you how to hear from him. And I'm not suggesting that it's just this audible voice in English. It comes in so many different ways, and he gives you a vocabulary and welcomes you into this. And you're like, oh, I can literally think with you. I can actually do this stream with you, Jesus. I can share what you're encouraging me to share. And it's revelation upon revelation. And how did Steve describe it in that clip? He said, he will set it right before you, things that were hidden. That's called revelation. You will see things that were hidden to you before because the Father reveals them. And as you walk with him, right? Without me, you can do nothing. This whole idea of the transfer is that each of us, as we are realigning ourselves, right? We're not giving our authority to Satan. We're literally saying, Jesus, only you have authority to speak to me. And rather than following some man, Crypto Heartbeat or Steve Staggs, don't follow any man. No, we follow a living, speaking Jesus, period, end of sentence. He stands in the whirlwind and says, come, stand with me. That's what this is about. I'm the way, the truth, the life, he said. That's it. It's very, very straightforward and simple. Because if it was about all this doctrine, it was all about these things, the thief on the cross would have had to do all kinds of things in order to be approved. But the thief on the cross recognized who he was, and he said, today you will be with me in paradise. So folks, this is all about Jesus. And he said, all authority has been given to me. Everything was made for him and by him. And the lie is that you can't go to him, that he's dead. There's no revelation. There's no speaking. There's none of that stuff. You've got to figure it out yourself by kind of reading your Bible and hopping on one foot and praying. And maybe he'll throw you a bone. It's not the truth. Truth is you can go directly to him. You can ask him yourself. And that's an amazing thing. So why? Well, that's the way it was set up at the beginning. And I just imagine Eve there, this crafty one, right? A speaking serpent who, obviously prior to Satan coming in and basically using the serpent, probably had many conversations with this crafty one. He was wise. It's interesting that the animals were speaking at the time. But think about that. I come in to lie to you so that you would become and know and understand good and evil. So here's the question. So I'm going to bring it all the way home. I'm going to land the plane. If you are a son, if you are a daughter, you are a prince and you are a princess, meaning you have authority to rule. And it's in a kingdom. And that kingdom is going to come. And God's will would be done. But the challenge is we're going our own way. My will be done, right? That's how this world is operating. That's why it's upside down. And as you see that and you go, okay, how do we accomplish why you created your man to rule and to reign with you in the fullness of your nature and character? Well, what happens when your nature and character is the Father's nature and character and you start animating the tools with his nature and character? What does it look like? It looks like heaven. Whoa. So we have a role of responsibility. So think about this. You have authority over things in your life, right? You may have a family. You may have a certain amount of money. You may have a business. You may be a coach. You may own guns, whatever it is. Your nature and character is extended through those tools. You animate those. So the question is, how are you animating the tools of your own body? Is it to bless and protect? Or is it to dominate and to extract? Are you somebody that's building meme coins so you can rug them and steal from people? How are you animating the tools in your life that you have authority over? But I'm just here to tell you, and Steve was here to tell you, you can go directly to him and ask him yourself. You don't have to listen to me. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I've already been convinced. Why? Because he's spoken to me. And I'm seeing these things come to pass. And folks, I think we're entering a time, an interesting time. And it's a time where we see the chronology of time and we see God's plan, this, Kairos time and the chronology of time intersecting into the fullness of time. And we're coming into this time where God's people, right, those who are listening to his voice, are accomplishing his will, because that's the concept of ruling and reigning. We're to rule over these things. These bad things, we say no. We say no to these things. And we bless and we protect. And when you think about that, you're like, well, this is an amazing adventure, because he says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What does that mean? Do you have to have it all figured out? No, ask him and he'll show you. I don't have it figured out. I can't tell you how many times I've been stuck on something and I'm like, hey, Jesus, what am I forgetting? And it's like, where does that come from? Right? It comes from Jesus himself. And then there's so many times when my open ports, right, I'm being lied to, and the lies that are spoken to you, and this is through the self, right? Through your mind, you're like, yeah. And you know they're lies. And it's like, I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, all right, Jesus, only you have the authority to speak to me. Satan, you have no standing here. You have no standing here. But see, that's the thing. So much has been built around this. So many people are trying to monetize Jesus. So many people have built these systems and these, thought processes and methods and all of these things. And that's a big part of the problem. But what does the Bible say? The people that pray out in the streets, or the people that make the noise when they're giving the money, you've received your reward in full. And I see it all over the place, right? People using the context and construct of Christianity as a means to elevate themselves. It's not how it was designed. God's going to accomplish his purposes for creation regardless of you or me. And it's amazing that we get to play a role in that, because, Steve passed away suddenly, and it was a shock to me. It was a shock to everyone. But what's amazing is I went to the service, and his son spoke at the memorial service, and his son said, "Do not be sad for my father. He's exactly where he wanted to be." And if you think about that, most of us are afraid of death because we're like, oh no, it's over, right? Because that's what you've been told. That's the lie. When the lights go out, it's over. No, it's a reward. And how do I know it's a reward? Well, think about this. The accounts of the people in the Bible, like Methuselah, he lived a long time. Noah, he lived a long time. Abraham, Sarah, all these folks lived a long time, right? And then there's this moment where it's like, you're going to be able to live 120 years. He shortened it, right? Methuselah, 1,000 years, something like that, 900 and something. Think about this for a second. It's the grace of God that this life is shorter, but we hang on to it as if it's the only thing. Here's the crazy part. Jesus goes up the mountain with Peter, James, and John, the Mount of Transfiguration. He's transfigured before them, and who appears? Moses and Elijah. And they're talking. Jesus is talking to Moses and Elijah. What does that say? Was it just an avatar of them? No, they're alive. Hold on a second. So what we see dimly, this is actually not real life. If it's eternal, then this is temporary. It's almost like the training program, folks. We're being prepared. We receive this authority and understand who we are. And think about this. If you're in the military, right? I mean, think about this for a second. If you're a general, or you're somebody that's an officer, and you've got somebody, an enlisted guy comes in and he is extremely belligerent, right? What do you have to do? There's a lot of things that you do to get him to come into line, because there is a set of rules. And what does a general need? What does somebody that's, directing a military group need? People going their own way? No, I need you to follow the program. I need you to listen carefully and execute the plans that I have. It doesn't work very well. And when you see the hierarchy of all this stuff, when you say, okay, there's a father in heaven, this king that literally has a strategic plan, and the whole purpose of him creating is that you would rule and reign in the fullness of his nature and character. Well, what is that? That's alignment with his purposes. And here we are going our own way, right? And what do we get from, the wages of sin of going our own way? Death. And it's like, no, there's a way, and it's narrow. And I think about it. I'm like, this is a great filter. This is a way in which God is saying to us, hey, are you going to, the heavens declare, I'm here. Are you going to come in alignment with me? And so Jesus himself comes and shows us and models the way. He literally models the way. Man does not live on bread alone, but out of every word that comes out of the mouth of God. What the Father's doing, that's what I do. What he says, that's what I do. Even the Father saying, hey, listen to him. So we've got this path marked out for us, but the gate is narrow, right? It's wide that leads to destruction. Why? Because you've been given this freedom of choice. And he was like, whoa, freedom. But when you actually come to understand who you are in him, you realize, no, you become literally underneath the authority of the creator of the universe. And do you think he knows what he's doing? Heck yeah. He's a shepherd. We recognize his voice. And when you come in alignment with that, it even talks about in the scriptures, you may be in charge of 5 or 10 cities. And what it made me realize is Steve is more alive now than he ever was. And that's actually what we have to look forward to, the blessed hope we have to look forward to. And that's incredible, right? Because so many people are fearing death. Death is a reward, this eternal next thing, this afterlife. And what's amazing about it is we just see so dimly. And we're told these lies that this is the best it's going to get, that you just evolved into this from a monkey. And we know inherently, I've known it since I was a kid. This isn't that's a lie. That's not true. And then to see this as I've inquired of him, the fruit of it, right? Not only peace that transcends all understanding, but you're seeing the redemption, this thread of redemption through all of these things that in some cases is redeeming the bad decisions I've made. But it's been this training ground. You fought the lion and the bear. I fought the lion and the bear. There's a purpose for this. And there's an alignment. And it's, I think really simply called this transfer of the man. And when you transfer the man, you transfer everything that the man has. That's all of the authority, all of the things, all of the resources. And so I think we're coming into an age. I really, truly believe this. And Jesus, he goes out up onto the hill, right? And it's the middle of the day. And there's a woman drawing water. And why? Why was she drawing water? Because she was ashamed. You usually drew water during the morning. She comes in the afternoon when it's hot so that no one's there and Jesus is there. And he says, hey, woman, give me some water. Draw some water for me. And she says, basically, you people don't talk to us, right? The Samaritan woman. The Samaritan woman is literally like, you Jews, you worship on that mountain. And what does he say to her? He says, one day you will worship in spirit and in truth. And of course, he told her everything she had done, right? And she was shocked, right? That he knew so much about her and her husbands. Folks, Jesus is alive and he speaks. He's trustworthy. All you have to do is try him on for size. The ultimate question in all of this isn't, you don't need to join a church. You may decide to, but at the end of the day, are you interested? Because he's alive and he speaks. And I think that's the thing we long for. We're trying to stuff everything, crypto and whatever it is, right? Drugs, sex, rock and roll, all that stuff. We're trying to shove it in because we want to self-medicate, because this place is it seems meaningless to you until you meet the one who gives it meaning. And then you're like, really? Can I like walk this out with you? Yeah. In fact, I will use everything I've created you to be in this process. And it's amazing because the purpose that you're looking for becomes whole. And then you start doing that in community, and it's just an amazing thing. And then you see what's happening in the world. I mean, you talk to a guy like Carter Hill and you just go, God's spoken some really big stuff, folks. And he's preparing people across the world. I saw this with the Ophir group the other day. I mean, it was amazing. But folks, I'm really, really thankful for you. I'm thankful for Steve, like being patient and being willing to, like, who does that? Like, take the time out for almost 2 years that he would spend with me. 37 episodes. You can watch them. They're in podcast form on this channel. If you go into the playlist, you can see it there. We have a tool at stevestaggs.com where you can search all of this stuff by keyword. Go to stevestaggs.com. We've got a community of people. You can come in and you can ask questions. I would encourage you. The link in the description is for Right Side Up, which is a Telegram channel. In that Telegram channel is the writing. Everything we talk about, there's this seminal writing called the 1960s White Paper that Steve wrote that really walks through this. And I really encourage you, if this is of at all interest to you, you're like, hold on, this is different than what I've heard. Elohim stuff, what's all this about? I really encourage you, jump into that Telegram group. You don't have to interact, but pinned at the top of that is this PDF. Take a look at this. But I will say it because Steve said it so many times to us. Most people that are out there are trying to sell you their version, right? They're trying to monetize you. They're trying to get you to do something, right? No, and it was funny. Like Steve was like, if I'm a charlatan trying to fool people, I'm a pretty bad one. Why? Because he never ever tried to use his teaching to monetize it, to sell it, to get people to do. No, he said, I'm just trying to show you and to encourage you to go ask him yourself, because there's no convincing that can be done. This isn't an apologetics class. And frankly, I don't think you can intellectually be talked into Jesus anyway. He has to show you, and he will show you if you're genuinely interested. In that last episode, we talked a lot about how specifically that works. But boy, it's the adventure of a lifetime. And then you start meeting people who have been speaking to Jesus too. And you're like, whoa, this is a whole community of people. And I would say this, if you have a sense of what time it is, big things are about to happen. And it's not what you think it is. Jesus is on the move and Satan is on the run. And there's some amazing things that are going to come to pass. And you may have a specific role in that. Why don't you ask him? I assure you, he will tell you. Folks, have a great weekend. It's homecoming weekend. Isn't that exciting? My daughter's coming back because she was the homecoming queen last year, and she's going to crown the new queen. She's at college, and it's going to be so great to see her. But folks, if you've got authority, which you do, why don't you bless and protect some people? Have a great weekend, and don't mess with Texas.